Dear Disabilities, Education, Accessibility, Resources presents.
Hello, everyone. My name is Viviana Barnwell. I am the founder of DEAR Disability, Education, Accessibility, and Resources. And this is the month of July. We're celebrating Disability Pride Month. Pride as in the human emotion that pertains to celebration, recognition, happiness, and everything positive. I have a disclaimer. I'm not a person with disabilities, but I'm very involved with the community because I have a child with multiple disabilities. I advocate and I believe in people with disabilities. That's why I want to celebrate this month. And I have my friend Sam Farmer here who's going to talk to us. Hi, Sam.
Hi there, Viviana. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Very good.
So Sam is going to talk a little about himself before we talk about some questions we have.
All right, so I am Sam Farmer. I was diagnosed right around age 3. This was back in the early 70s with a learning disability, but it wasn't until age 40 that I learned that I am autistic. And I referred to that as late identified, not late diagnosed, but late identified, because I view autism not as a disorder, but as an identity, a way of being. That's the way I look at it. That my brain and nervous system happen to be wired differently than most people, but that I possess what I refer to as a neurotype, a natural occurring neurotype, where neurotype in this context refers to how our brains and nervous systems are wired, kind of along the lines of biodiversity, which speaks to the diversity of life on Earth, that those of us, including me, who believe in neurodiversity, acknowledge that within the human population, there are a variety of these kinds of neurotypes. My learning disability and autism, ADHD, other learning disabilities or differences, and a whole bunch of other things that we've come to know as diagnoses that we actually view as identities within the human population. That's kind of what neurodiversity is all about. And so that's what's core to who I am. My disabilities and my differences, I own those. I proudly own them. They bring not just challenges and hardships, but unique attributes and abilities and talents as well. And I write a fair amount about this in my book entitled A Long Walk Down a Winding Road: Small Steps, Challenges, and Triumphs Through an Autistic Lens, as well as in my writings before, while I was writing the book, and publish after the publication of the book. And in order to learn more about all of this, the book, my writings, podcasts, videos of author talks, etc., I invite you to visit my website, www.samfarmerauthor.com.
Thank you, Sam. So now that you have established that you're a person with disabilities, because I don't want to impose that on anyone, what does being a person with disability mean? Especially thinking about the world we live in.
So, to be disabled, in my view, entails a number of things. We have our own intrinsic challenges, like with me, and I write about this in my book, Viviana, and in my other writings, that I have challenges with self-awareness, awareness of others, of my surroundings. I have certain challenges around the processing and use of nonverbal communication. I have other related challenges along those lines. I own those. But that to be disabled is to also, in my view, acknowledge that there are external factors, societal factors, that we find very disabling as well. Bullying is a prime example. Unrealistic societal expectations as to how we're supposed to exist, how we're supposed to socialize with other people, how we're supposed to behave, communicate, think, learn, etc. That were not written with us in mind. And so therefore, we find many of us very disabling in conjunction with our own intrinsic challenges. And so you have this notion of factors that are disabling, that are external, and those internal attributes of a given disability. And for me, by far, what I find considerably more disabling are the external influences, the external expectations that I, over the course of my life, have often struggled with, because again, they were not written with me in mind. They were written a very, very, very long time ago. And by the non-disabled majority. And so those can make life very challenging.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, or what do you want? Thinking about all that you just said, what do you want people, what don't you want people to assume about you?
I would not want people to assume that I am incapable of anything just because I'm disabled. Disabled people still have plenty of real abilities, real talents that really, like all of us, we have our strengths, we have our weaknesses. My weaknesses are perhaps a little different than those of the non-autistic majority, for example. So that's number one. Disabled individuals are very able in all kinds of ways. And so we own our abilities and our disabilities. Now, with respect to autism, I would want people to not assume, as many in positions of power have said lately, that we are not a growing epidemic, that a reasonable number of us do in fact work, we pay our taxes, we're married, we have kids. I've held a job for 29, 30 years now with the same company. I'm loyal to that company. I do really good work for that company. I pay taxes for the work that I do. I'm married and with a son who is also autistic. I am not part of a growing epidemic. Autism is a naturally occurring neurotype. My learning disability is naturally occurring. We've been here since the dawn of humanity. It's just that the rate of identification, the rate of diagnosis is what has gone up. And if there's any epidemic out there, it's an epidemic of what I would call ableism, which is a term used to describe societal discrimination against those of us who are disabled. If there's any growing epidemic, it's the epidemic of ableism, not of autism. We've been around forever. It's just that we're being identified and diagnosed more so in more recent years than in previous years. So those are a couple of key points. I would also want people to not assume things like what stereotypes say about us, that we are incapable of empathy, that we are incapable of taking care of ourselves. Granted, our community is anything but monolithic. Members of the autism community have very diverse types of challenges and support needs. But then again, all of us face challenges and a need for supports, just of different types. The challenges and supports that we face and that we need tend to be novel because, again, we're in the minority relative to the non-disabled majority. And I would want people to not assume that just because today they're not members of the disability community, that they would never be members of the disability community, because all it takes is a split second for something extreme to happen. And without any expectation, out of the blue, you could find yourself disabled. And many of us do, in fact, start out non-disabled to later in life become disabled. And for many of us, like with me, not everybody, but many of us, our disability is part of self-identity. In spite of the challenges we face, we embrace it as part of who we are. How we compensate for our challenges, how we deal with those challenges. It's all part of who we are.
Thank you, Sam. A lot of really good thoughts you had. I particularly like how you talked about all the weaknesses and strengths, because with my son, and I'm sure you have experienced, once people know you have a disability, all that they see is a myriad of weaknesses, and they tend to ignore any strength, talent, or ability to contribute. And the other thing was when you talk about we all are potentially have the potential of becoming disabled. I like to tell people we are all an accident away from becoming disabled.
Correct.
We all,
We all need
and
to realize
yet
that.
people tend to disregard disabilities so much as if it were something so detached and so far away, when it's like I'm not going to wake up tomorrow a different race or a different preference, but I might wake up tomorrow being
It's one of the few, maybe only minority communities
at anyone.
where you wouldn't be born into it, but that you could later become a member of.
Exactly.
Correct.
That's why we have to.
But we should not assume that just because today we're not in the disability community, that tomorrow we wouldn't be or couldn't be, because it can happen.
And if it doesn't happen to you, it can happen to your next child, your
Correct.
next grandchild, your next nephew or family member. And the final question, which is the happy question, since we are celebrating Disability Pride Month, why should we all celebrate people with disabilities, not only this month, but all year long, Sam?
We have a unique perspective on life, which is shaped by the fact that we inevitably must develop skills and an attitude on life that enable us to navigate a world that was not built with us in mind. And that can lead to the development of some pretty formidable skills, and in my case, certainly inner strength. I had to learn a lot of lessons the hard way. I had to learn how to compensate for my challenges in order to succeed, but I did. and I'm not the only one in my community who has, that that kind of strength, that kind of wisdom of being able to navigate a world that wasn't built with us in mind, brings a lot of valuable skills and abilities, for example, to the workplace, to life in general. Our unique perspective on things, that if people listen to our lived experiences and learn from them and take what they learn to heart, studies have shown, for example, that workplaces that embrace disability, that often helps the bottom line, because the workplace develops various interpersonal communication type skills for when you're dealing with a workforce that's diversified along the lines of disabled versus abled, neurotypical versus neurodivergent, autistic versus non-autistic, with respect to race, gender identity, etc., that there are benefits to the workplace in those regards: interpersonal skills, collaborative skills, and a company that's able to draw from a wider diversity of perspectives and ideas than would otherwise be the case. Would be a prime example. And we should be celebrated for all those reasons, but also for having the courage to be true to who we are. That takes real courage, and courage is a personality attribute that's highly valued in society. That in being who we are, in revealing our disability, that those are acts of great courage that sadly all too often are punished, but that really are worthy of being awarded. And so that, and celebrated, really, for that matter. So those are my thoughts along those lines.
Thank you, Sam. So you make really great points. I see it again with my son, like how when you have a windier road, you have to create more tools and be more resourceful and more resilient than the average person. So I am going to thank you for being here. I celebrate you in this
Thank you
moment
very much,
for
Viviana.
being a very, 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 very supportive person.
Thank you very much, and right back at you for all the things
Kind,
that you're doing.
knowledgeable, and reliable. I always can count on you. And not only you are a supportive, kind, knowledgeable, and reliable member of the autistic community, but a member of the society at large, because people with disabilities do contribute to a better world. So thank you.
Indeed, we do.
Fun.
Thank you very much, Viviana.
Bye, guys.